All right, as folks kind of trickle in, we're going to get this started. Hello, my name is Damon with Penn State's Office of Student Aid. Today we're going to go over our cost of attendance and kind of go over some general information for you. As we kind of go along with this, there is like a little chat in the bottom you can ask your questions to. This meeting will be recorded and we posted later next week. With that being said, please keep your mics, cameras off as well. That way there's no disruptions along the way. We will not be answering questions as we go, so you don't have to like raise your hand or anything. Just use that chat feature and you can type in your questions as we go. And then our team behind the scenes will gladly answer all those questions. Again, this will be recorded. So again, keep your mics off, keep your cameras off, and then later next week we'll post this to our YouTube page. So if you have any questions about this or missed something along the way, you can just rewatch the video and we'll gladly send that link will be sent to you after this is completed. All right, here is what our agenda looks like today. We're going to go over what is cost of attendance, calculating tuition and fees, estimating housing and food, accounting for non-billable expenses, the financial aid and cost of attendance, and the financial aid timeline, and some resources out there for you. And at the end, we do have a question and answer section. That's where we'll go off of some of the questions you folks had submitted prior to this webinar, and there's also some of the questions that are in the chat itself. We'll try and go over those live as well. All right, what is our cost of attendance definition? Move this out of the way. So, if you are attending school at least half time, the cost of attendance, or COA, is the estimate of tuition and fees, books, course materials, slides, and equipment, cost of living, housing or food, and or living expenses, transportation expenses, so like gas, if you have to park on campus, anything along those lines, bus fees, if you have to, travel to and far, there's Greyhound buses and all that, as well as just general transportation cost. Loan fees, excluding any loan fees for your non-federal student loans. Miscellaneous expenses, including a reasonable amount of documented costs, such as a personal computer. This can also include laundry as well, or like any random miscellaneous expense you may come through, allowance for childcare or dependent care, costs related to a disability, costs related to attaining a license, certification, or first professional credential, and reasonable costs for eligible or study abroad programs. So license with some programs that do have a licensure, that's where that will come into play. Again, this is the definition, or this is the estimate cost of attendance, and these are just the things you'll see. You'll see it. Oh, we'll review a little more closely as we go. So, first thing everyone wants to know about tuition and fees. Here's how you get to that. So we have to go to tuition.puc.edu, and then you click on the tuition schedules. Again, that's tuition.puc.edu, and then you'll click on tuition schedules here, and here's what it'll look like. So we'll go over Pennsylvania residents and non-residents. And non-Pennsylvania includes international as well. So here's what that looks like for you. So if you're enrolled now, you would see fall and spring of this year. For those who are going over the fall and spring, you'll see you click on PA, non-PA. We have all our main campus, University Park, and all of our Commonwealth campuses as well. And World Campus is listed on there as well. And as you see there also is summer 2025. That when that's updated to summer 2026, you'll see that information as well. Again, tuition.puc.edu, and that's when you'll click on your tuition schedules. And here's what that page will look like. Again, this is for PA residents and non-PA residents, and it includes your international students as well. First, here's the tuition cost for a PA resident. You see there, we have per academic year. This is the full-time rate. And then you also have a per credit for part-time, you have per credit. So that's anything below 12 credits. And then anything, so that's between 1 and 11 credits is part-time, and then 12 and above is full-time. So here again, per academic calendar year, and there's a cost per semester. So notice you freshman and sophomore, you have the 20,878, and that's for the full year. And then if you note down, so a lot of folks may have heard there is that increase when you're a junior and senior. As you see here, that does vary between academic programs. So for example, science, IST, and EMS varies from engineering, and all other programs, that's anything that's not these core ones listed here. So just when you're looking through your programs, so when you get to your junior year, that's where that surcharge comes from. It's primarily around because at that time you're entering your more more your core classes, so that's where that surcharge comes from. And again, that it also has that part-time per credit. So you can so again, that's 1 to 11 credits is part-time, and then full-time is 12 and above. The next we'll go over here's what a non-PA resident looks like. So again, same breakdown per academic year, there's a per semester and per credit. So for an out-of-state student or a non-PA resident, it'd be about 44,574 a year for the tuition cost itself. And then also again, that surcharge is applicable when you're junior and senior. You see again, you have all your varying costs here, and again, there is that part-time per credit hours as well there. So yep, if whenever you're again, whenever you're looking at your junior courses, that's when you'll see that surcharge as well as your senior as well. So next we're going to go over our cost of attendance calculator. So again, this is where you go to tuition.puc.edu and you'll click on tuition calendar. This is important, that way you can get a general sense of how much the cost of her tuition will be as well. Then here's that tuition calendar. If you see there at the bottom, it's tuition.psu/student tuition calculators. This is a really good tool out there to kind of help you get a general sense and an estimate of what your cost is going to be while you're attending the university. Again, this will have varying costs because you could, if you're at a Commonwealth campuses, your costs would be different, and then what you are at University Park. So if you're looking around there, if you're going to a Commonwealth campus, you'll click on that and you can see that as well too. Again, this is tuition.puc.edu/student dash tuition dash calculators. And here's what that looks like. So whenever you're putting this in, it's critical you put if you're, PA or non-PA resident. So that'll definitely, if you click on that non-PA, you might see, oh, my cost is significantly higher, just because non-PA residents are higher than a PA resident. You also click on your pursued degree, so bachelor's, associates, master's, and there's a couple other options there as well. After you click on that, you'll then click on your primary enrollment, so either University Park or one of our Commonwealth campuses or World Campus as well. Then you'll also be able to select the anticipated credits you want per semester, so you can do fall and spring if you're interested in summer. You can also do summer as well, whatever your preference is. So here, that's where you'll put in, again, if you have between 12 to 18, you'll see the same flat rate for full time. But if you're doing 1 to 11, that's where you'll see some variation per the credit hours. So again, full time is 12 and above, and part time's 11 and below. So that's where if you're doing, I want to take, 15 credits this semester, but only want to take so many credits this semester. Here will be a good representation of how you select that. And then whenever you're doing this, you can select if you're have on-campus housing as well. If you aren't on campus, totally okay, but you can select that there, and it'll show you a general cost of what your on campus is and off campus is. It'll show up a little bit differently, but you can do that as well. Select your college, major, and it'll generate a number for you. Again, this is the best estimate to if you want to look at what your costs and such are. This is their best estimator. I mean, this is not, obviously it is an estimate, so numbers could change a little bit. So just when you're doing that, just be wary of that. It is an estimator. And there you see the top right-hand corner of the screen. It's at cce.psu.edu, and that's how you do your estimator. Again, really great tool. We always recommend folks to definitely tinker around with this. So if they want like a general cost of what the next semester could cost, for example, this is a great tool to kind of help you figure all that stuff out. And here's you have your total net price calculator. So here you'll just put in your first and last name, then the email, and you'll be able to start your estimate. Again, there at the bottom of the link, at the very bottom is where you'll be able to do that. This is a really great tool we have out there as well. So next, go over housing and food. So I know people have their emojis on here. I forget which one's there, but we'll do the thumbs up if you plan on living on campus, and then I guess we'll do the high five if you're going to plan to live off campus. Pick either one of those. I know I'm doing a really great job. Thanks for all the thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. And then next, same thing. If you're considering living off campus or if you're considering living off campus, that's where you can do the clap thing or clapping emoji as well. Sorry, I'm not as tech savvy as the as some of the other folks with all the emojis on here. So I greatly appreciate the participation. It's just funny to see all the emojis come in the bottom right hand corner. Um, And people using the wrong ones makes me laugh too. All right, so next, housing and food. Housing and food costs estimate based on the information collected via the application. So we have on-campus housing with or without dependents, off-campus housing, living with parents. So those are our three primarily housing options there. So again, you'll see that when you're doing when you see that cost per 10 I was mentioning in the calculator, you can select those three options. There is budget set aside for off-campus housing as well as living with parents then. And then on-campus housing you'll see whenever if you're doing on campus as well. Meal costs are estimates based on the standard cost of 3 meals a day. And then for more details on housing and the housing on-campus housing and the meal plan costs, you can find this via liveon.puc.edu. Again, this is some information that gets calculated into that overall cost of attendance. But if you do have further questions, liveon.puc.edu are the best folks to kind of help you figure out which meal plan's best for you and which housing options are out there for you. So next we're going to go over those non-billable expenses. I kind of touched on it briefly in the beginning of the start of the presentation of what those kind of look like. But these are flexible expenses based on circumstances. So books, course materials, supplies, and equipment. So with that, a lot of folks will ask us how much our books are going to cost. We unfortunately don't know that information because it can vary upon courses. So that's where we kind of put that as a non-billable expense because we have no way to accurately know that to bill. So that's why it gets calculated into that non-billable. And again, that's course materials. If you need supplies, so that's where if you have to get like, for example, a laptop for classes and such, that's kind of where this comes into play too. Any course materials. So if you're like in any labs, this is where that comes into play as well. Getting transportation. So, if you get park a car on your campus, depending on what campus you're at, two, if you're living from farther away and take the Greyhound bus to and from your campus, flying, any of those transportation costs, that's where that's calculated into. So miscellaneous costs include, cell phone bills, laundry, any uninsured medical expenses, and personal items then. So again, that's all categorized into that miscellaneous cost. So that has a very wide degree of what miscellaneous is, hence why it's miscellaneous. And also housing and food if living on campus. If you are off campus, that's where this will be a non-billable expense. But if you're living on campus, it'll be a billable expense because we'll know your rate at that point. But yeah, that's only the housing and food is only a non-billable expense if you're living off campus, not on campus. And are these expenses that you need aid to cover? So realistically, when we put this down, it is all into your cost of attendance. So that is an overall arching number. So what that is your total ability to borrow. Say if you're living off campus and you want to use a loan to cover your off-campus housing, that's where this comes from. It's a non-billable expense, so you're able to borrow a loan out for that off-campus housing. A lot of folks will do that. It's a great option if you need to do that. You can also use those loans to help cover, books and course materials. So your aid can be used towards this, even though it says it's non-billable technically, but it goes into your cost of attendance, and that's your overall power to like essentially borrow up to that amount. So you can use any of these can be your aid can be used to cover any of these expenses. So here's what those non-billable looks like. So here we just update our estimated for our 2026, 2027 estimated costs. So here on the right-hand side, you'll see updated amounts of those. So there, again, is those books, course materials, supplies, and equipment, transportation cost. Here we have our miscellaneous breaking down. Again, those amounts are just so we have a set budget aside. Now you may not be spending 360 bucks a semester on your cell phone, but it's there in case you need it. And the big thing I wanted to point out is that on-campus housing or off-campus housing, I mean, sorry. So you have off-campus housing. That's our estimated rent across the semester. So again, if you do need to borrow a loan to pay your off-campus housing, there is a budget set aside for that. When you see we have on-campus, we also have a living with parents estimate, and then there's also food estimate there as well. So again, that's calculating that 3 meals a day. If you eat more than 3 meals, you might go over your budget there. And they always say if you're going to Starbucks on campus all the time, you're definitely going to run over your budget really quick. But that's just a general food estimate for you. And as you see there on the bottom right-hand side, you have above the off-campus, you have your on-campus living cost. So it is a little cheaper to live on campus, but dorm availability does vary depending on your campus as well. And below that, you see living off campus and living with parents. So we do have rates for those as well. Again, these are all, well, if you're living on campus, it's a billable expense one, but the rest of these are non-billable expenses. But if you do need to apply for a loan or you want to use your aid towards this after you paid off your tuition, you can do that as well. So again, these are the amounts you'll be looking at when if you're using to apply for anything after this too. So next, we're going to go over financial aid and cost of attendance. So the amount of allowable aid equals your cost of attendance. So that's where you calculate those non-billable expenses and your billable expenses. First, aid's applied to your billable expense. So that's your tuition. If you're living on campus, that's also your housing then as well. Those are the two primary things you'll see as billable expenses. Again, there might be some fees in there, but the aid must be applied to those first. So if you are looking to, apply for off-campus housing, need those excess funds, this is where you'll apply for the loan. If you are getting a loan, for example, and you pay off your billable expense, any excess fund is refunded back to you, the student. That's this thing we set up through our Office of the Bursar. But that's where students will apply, enough to cover their tuition, then they'll apply for the excess funds to cover that housing then as well. So again, any excess amounts are refunded back to you, the student. Refunded dollars can be used at the student's discretion as for non-billable expenses. I would recommend if you're going to do this route, make sure you put that money aside solely for whatever purpose you're spending on. Don't go spending extra money as because that's we will run out of those loans funds really quickly or those refund amounts really quickly. So again, these are your funds at this point, so you can use them at your discretion, but recommend not spending it all on the store down any of those mini stores downtown and using this for your non-billable expenses, i.e. those books, transportation costs, and your rent if you're living off campus as well. And cost of credits we do have increased requests. So these are when you're above average cost. Most of the times we'll see this coming for rent. So as you saw that average rent cost previously. So that's primarily what we'll see a lot of cost of attendance requests come through. Now, if you do that, we have our own system assigned for that one. That one, you can just contact the office. We can go over it with you. I won't really go into that one right here, but you can just reach out to our office. We can go over that process. Again, this is the really any relatively easy form to do. It can be for if your rent is actually higher than that budget. If there's like has to be like a specific thing. If for food, for meals, it's rarely ever approved, but primarily it's focused on your housing cost. And again, that's above the average, which was that previous amount we looked at earlier. So here's our current timeline. So a lot of you folks may have gotten an email saying, hey, here's your financial aid offer. That was only sent out for folks who have submitted their FAFSA application and have one on file. So this is for your completing your 26-27 FAFSA application. Students are starting in fall of 26. We'll be doing the fall or the FAFSA for 26-27. Again, that covers fall and spring as well as that. And if you're doing the summer 2026, you'll need to complete a 25-26 FAFSA and then also do your 25 or 26-27 as well. Again, recommended filing, we are kind of at that recommended filing date for new students and continuing students. We recommend getting it filed by April 15th. But if you're a new student, get that in now. That way you have that FAFSA in. So here's what I was mentioning about aid offers have gone out, started to go out for new students coming in. One of the main things that will happen is if a student does not have their aid offer because they don't have the FAFSA on file, is actually because they didn't submit their social security number. So what happens is students will do the Common App and sometimes it won't come over. So if you have not gotten a financial aid offer and you have a FAFSA on file, we recommend going to accounts.psu.edu to submit your social security number. And again, that's accounts.psu.edu and you'll be able to put your social security number in. What happens is we have to match those social security numbers from your FAFSA application to that your Penn State account. If those aren't matched, you won't get a FAFSA or offer there. So again, definitely make sure if you have not, just double check and make sure. Again, you can go to accounts.puc.edu and you can get that submitted. Again, that's primarily one of the reasons where students have not gotten their initial aid offers for their federal aid is because that social security number is not there. When those aid offers went out, If a student had their FAFSA completed by December 15th, this will include all automatic consideration aid sources. So this institutional aid, federal aid, estimated PA or PA state grant, or estimated state grant. Again, that's only if you're a PA resident. This will not include scholarships from individual campuses or colleges. This will not include additional loan options or any outside scholarships. We do have next month in March, we'll actually do Understanding Your Financial Aid Offer webinar. Again, this is just a general synopsis on what just the timeline so you folks know that. But we will have a more in-depth conversation about that next month in our next webinar series. Again, those aid offers did start to go out for students who completed their FAFSA by December 15th. If you did not receive that aid offer, you might have to upload your social security number, and that one you can do via accounts.puc.edu. Again, just make sure that's submitted, and you should have no issues there as well. So this is the next timeline for March through May. Definitely start to research and consider your student loan options out there. We cannot recommend a loan servicer. This is where we like to say you can just go on Google search private student loan lenders and you'll see a bunch of information out there. Again, we cannot personally recommend anyone for you. There's plenty of options out there. When you are researching your loans, definitely take the time to shop around and look at which options are best there for you. Again, interest rates are always going to vary. One may offer, a benefit if, for example, if you have a bank, some banks still do private student loans. You just have to clarify. If they don't, that's where you then go to the private student loan lenders. Again, whenever you're looking around, look at what rates are out there. If there's any additional benefits, for example, some may offer an auto pay option where you have an interest rate that's slightly lower. So look into those things as well. Again, apply for additional sources. Those are loans. For more information about loans and resources, we will be covered in our budgeting, understanding debt, and finding loans webinar in April. Again, we'll have one about understanding our financial aid offer next month in March, and this about budgeting, understanding debt, and finding loans will be in April. Again, estimated expenses and financial aid offers for summer 2026. So if you are a summer 2026 admit, will be available in April as well. This is just the kind of common things you can be doing now as well. So financial aid for May/start of the semester. So here's where you financialize your aid. Complete any to-do list items, accept, decrease, or decline your loans by after May 1st. Applying for additional loans. You can use federal loans or private educational loans. Again, this is kind of where I was mentioning about what's the best loan type for your situation. Definitely important to review repayment options. So most repayment options will be 6 months after you graduate, but it's definitely critical to clarify that repayment option and make sure what option's out there and if which one best fits for you. Again, repayment options can vary, so definitely when you're applying for your loans, look into that. This is where you'll start to also review your billing statement. Does your aid cover the balance? If your aid does not, that's where you look into the loans and any additional options. How do you make payments? And if you're interested in doing the installment plan, that's where that'll go through as well. If you're interested in the installment plan or installment payment plan, you can contact our Bursar's office. They're the folks who handle all that stuff, so they'll gladly talk to you. You can go to their website. It's Bursar, BURSAR .psu.edu. Again, that's bursar.psu.edu, and they'll have information on the payment plan as well. So here are our key takeaways from this section. So cost of attendance equals cost of all billable and non-billable educational expenses. Again, billable are the ones we bill you. So if your tuition, if you're living on campus, meals and housing. If you're living off campus, that's where you'll be a non-billable expense. Aid that can be used up to your overall cost of attendance. So that's that table we had earlier that kind of showed your non-billable expense. And then you can also, if you want a general idea of what aid your total overall cost of attendance, that's really good. Using the cost of attendance calculator that I showed you as well. That's also a great tool. Again, aids for both types of expenses. Use tuition.puc.edu to compare tuition rates for campuses based on your state residency. FAFSA is available now. So again, you can do the 26-27 FAFSA. And if you are a summer admit, you'll do the 25-26 because summer is actually the end of the academic calendar year. So again, if you're a fall admit, you'll do 26-27. If you're a summer admit, you'll do a 25-26. Personalized expense estimate and financial aid offers are available in early March. And then estimated expenses may not reflect your actual needs. So again, they are estimates. They are not, fully solidified to what your personalized needs are. So just make sure are wary of that as well. They are not individualized to your specific needs. They are estimates. And again, cost of attendance increases can be requested in special circumstances. Again, if you have questions on how that process works, you're always welcome to reach out to the office and we'll gladly go over that process with you. This can be things for, rent or something, people sometimes medical expenses as well. But again, there are cost of attendance increases out there. If you do need them, they can be requested in the special circumstances. So here are the aid resources out there. You can go to psu.edu/cost-aid. Um, so if you have not already, I highly recommend looking on our website. Definitely go to this types of aid section down here in the left-hand corner, click on scholarships, see what all grants are out there, student employment, federal work studies, and then we have some general loan information as well. In there, you'll kind of see in the right-hand corner, cost of attendance. Definitely, again, familiarize ourselves with our website as you probably probably be looking at it quite a bit between now and the start of fall semester. You think that'll come up really quick, so definitely take the time to look on here if you have not already. Again, psu.edu/cost-aid. Here's some more resources out there for you. Here's our website. If you want to do that FAFSA and not done it already, here's studentaid.gov. Or- And then also, we highly recommend when you folks are getting closer to your start of campus or just generally on campus for like an ASE event or something like that, definitely talk to the Suglove Miller Family Literacy Center out there. They're really good folks that'll help kind of understand budgeting and kind of more in depth than what we're able to go over. So definitely stop by their office and they might be able to set up. You might be able to set an appointment with those folks. They're their budgeting experts, so definitely take time to talk to those folks if you've not already. We do have our YouTube page, which is where this webinar will be posted, most likely early next week, as well as our previous webinars we've done. There's a lot of webinars out there. That scholarship webinar I was talking about is on there, as well as a bunch of other ones that we've done prior. And then the upcoming office student webinars we have here. So next we'll have that understanding financial aid offer. That'll be March 5th. And there is that budgeting, understanding debt, and finding loans that I mentioned. That'll be April 2nd. Again, we do definitely take the time to register for these, watch us. Again, you hear my wonderful voice again, as well as my colleague Craig, who's going to be up here shortly. So definitely take the time to look at those whenever they are there. Again, if you register and you're not able to show up at that exact time, they're posted the following week in our YouTube page, and there's the link there at the bottom. I'll give you a couple seconds to look at that. These are definitely a great resource out there. So if you have not, definitely register for them. We'll gladly talk your ear off and give you some additional information. Again, these are our campuses, so please reach out to any of our campuses here. If you're going to a Commonwealth campus, their staff are wonderful. We'll gladly talk to you and answer any kind of questions you have as well. If you're going to a Commonwealth campus, you want to talk to that specific campus, and if you're going to University Park, you want to talk to our folks as well. You can give a couple seconds to take pictures of this if you need it. And then again, these are our campuses. World Campus, if you are attending World Campus, has its own specific aid office. So you want to talk to those folks as well. Again, the campus offices are a great resource out there for you. So if you do want to talk to those folks, definitely take the time to call them and they'll gladly answer whatever questions you may have. So if you folks have called in before, you're probably aware of our new enrollment service center. Again, this is a one-stop shop for enrollment support designed to help University Park students with questions, concerns related to financial aid, admissions, or registration as well. Here is their number out there. So if you call, these will be the folks you talk to, and they have put lots of information that kind of help get you along your way. You can either email them if you're on campus, stop by. Again, they're a wonderful group of folks who'll gladly help you out, answer any questions you may have. Next, we're going to go over any questions you folks may have. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing, ask my colleague Craig to pop on, and we'll go over our questions part. Unshare my
Here we
screen.
go.
All right, stop my share. That way we can do our fun time, Craig.
Ready when you are.
All right, let me see. I'll pick off one of the questions from our chat here first if it wants to actually work with me. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. All right, I'll pull up one of these ones because it's not gonna. All right. So, where is the best place? I know I just said this, but where is the best place to find our previous webinars that have scholarships and other information that we've kind of reviewed in the past?
Yeah, it's going to be on our YouTube channel and page. That'd be the best place to find all the previously recorded webinars. And then just our regular website, the psu.edu cost-aid. Lots of good information there. So both of those will get you just about everything that you need.
All right, perfect. Let me see. All right, I know this one always comes up, so I'm just going to do it. Um, can an out-of-state student become an in-state student?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. If you start as an out-of-state student, then you're always going to be an out-of-state student for tuition purposes. The only one exception to that would be, in a military situation. If a student would join the military, something like that, then they could be given the in-state tuition rate, as far as I know. Can't say that for 100% for sure, but from what we know of that, that would be the only exception.
So I'll kind of caveat to that one. For that GI Bill, if they are using it, what office would they contact?
Yeah, we have a veterans office. And anytime you have any questions at all about any type of military benefits, highly suggest you reach out to them. Great staff, very knowledgeable. They can walk you through anything that you need as far as that goes. So just go to theveterans.psu.edu and you'll get your contact information, email, everything that you need. Just reach out and they'll take care of you.
All right, perfect. I knew this guy's solid in here. Saying they have not received their aid offer. What is the process to have a student link their aid, like so their social security number again? How do they go about that process?
Yeah, so a couple different ways. You can update it through your My Penn State account, or easiest way is just to go to accounts.psu.edu. Should only take a couple minutes to upload your social security number. Usually it updates overnight. Also, if you go to our website and search tutorial, how do I update my information in LinePath? You'll see information. A tutorial will walk you right through it. So pretty simple process. So should be pretty easy.
Perfect. Let me pull up. All right. Oh, and just so I can repeat it for you, what was the website to find where our tuition calculator is?
So the easiest way to get there is just go to tuition.psu.edu, or you can access it through our website underneath the cost and aid tab. If you go over and click on the far right column at the top, cost and aid, I like to use that cost calculator down at the very bottom of the page. So lots of different ways to get there, but tuition.psu.edu, pretty easy to remember.
See. And just to clarify, do they submit the student or the parent's social security number?
Going to be the student social security number. Yeah, we have to be able to match what's on your FAFSA with what we have in LionPath in order to load your FAFSA. So if we don't have that information on LionPath, then no way to load your FAFSA. So what happens is a lot of students use the Common App. The Common App does not require that social security number, so they don't input it on there, not realizing that we need it. So if you use the Common App and you didn't put that social security number on it, definitely want to make sure you log into accounts.psu.edu, update it, and then you should be good to go.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig. And then, so I saw there is a question you're asking about can FAFSA funds be used to cover food?
Yeah, absolutely. Any kind of federal aid can be used to cover billable and non-billable charges. Keep in mind that it's always going to go towards your billable charges first. If you're living on campus, obviously your room and food is going to be a billable charge. If you're off campus, it won't. So again, can be used for either. It's just always going to go towards the billable charges first.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig. Now, kind of saw this question come up too. Um, again, if I always like to double down on it. If they have questions about how to use their military veteran benefits, what's the correct office to work with?
Yeah, just their Office of Veterans Programs. Again, it's just veteran.psu.edu. So that'll take you out to the page, and again, you should get contact information, everything that you need there. And if they have an email, should have a phone number you can reach out by phone, but they'll take care of anything related to veterans awards in any way, shape, or form. So definitely the place to check out.
Okay. I know I kind of went over some non-billable expenses. Are there any other one you just want to review that a little more closely is like what all other ones are out there and what all others categorize as a non-billable expense?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can be considered non-billable. Pretty much anything that a student could have to spend money on that's not going to be billed directly by Penn State is a non-billable charge. So there's things that we have built in there because we have to have that cost of attendance, which sets that maximum amount of aid that you can have. But it does include a pretty broad range of things. Textbooks, obviously, miscellaneous to travel expenses. You have to go back and forth to home a couple times a semester. Your cell phone bill, all of those things that Penn State's not going to bill you for, but it's part of being a student. Football tickets, attending other events, things like that. That all could be considered non-billable charges. But can't go over that cost of attendance. So whatever that number is, keep in mind that you cannot go beyond that by law. So once you get to that point, then we have to start reducing your aid to keep you at that number.
Wonderful. Thank you. Um, I know this we're going to cost percents, but we'll do this one because I know a lot of some folks just got their aid offers. If the aid offer states grants and scholarships is zero, is it possible the scholarships are still pending?
Potentially. At this point, most of our federal aid and a lot of our institutional scholarships are going to be awarded. Now, some of our merit money comes directly through our academic colleges. And if you go out to that website, it shows you the chart there. Their process is very different. Every college is a little different. They have a different timeline. Some of those colleges may not award until closer to summer. So could there be? The answer is yes, theoretically. But what we try to tell people is once you see that initial aid offer, you want to kind of use that as your worst case scenario, make your decision of attendance based upon that. And if you get anything beyond that, it's kind of a bonus, especially for first year students. We tend to award a little bit more in the back end than we do in the front end. So just keep that in mind.
Perfect. And then for our rates, are we locked? Is the fall 2026 locked in for the next 4 years, or is there an increase annually?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, there is an increase annually. It does change from year to year. Typically, we say it's about a 2.5% roughly change historically, although you never know. Obviously, things are different. So typically, the Board of Trustees meets in July and sets the tuition rates for the upcoming year in July. So it's going to be pretty late until, right before the next semester. So everything that you see out there for one year, potentially keep in mind, could change a little bit, but it's going to get you pretty close.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's where you'll go to that tuition.pu.edu and you'll see those. Um, whenever, as soon as they have the approved rates for the fall upcoming years, that's where that information will be there as well. Let me see. Save that. Up our little question. Um, I'm only going to ask this because some of the aid offers just went out. Can they appeal their aid offers?
Yeah, unfortunately, there is no real appeals process in terms of appealing straight aid now. Obviously, your FAFSA is based upon 2 years prior tax information. So we do have what's called a special circumstance review that say your tax or income has changed. And for some reason, your AGI or your SAI, sorry, and your income from your taxes is changed from one year to the other. We do have a process where you can call in and talk to a special circumstance team to review to see if you might be able to qualify for more federal aid sources based upon a different tax year's data. But it's very important to make sure you don't try to change that data on your own. You never want to do that. You want to call and talk to our team. And then if something could change, they will let you know what the process is. So, in terms of a straight appeal for more aid, really, unfortunately, there's not anything out there now.
I know I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about the FAFSA, but do you have to apply for that every year?
You do. Yep. So, every year, the FAFSA is going to open up on October 1st. So, again, Earlier you submit it, the better. And keep in mind, for the new students, we said December 15th. For continuing students, it's not until April 15th because continuing students are awarded a little bit later. But I recommend you try to have it done over Christmas break when you go home. That way you'll know you're in good shape. That way you don't miss any deadlines because some of our aid is kind of awarded first come, first serve. So if you apply a little bit later, you could miss out potentially on some aid that you may have been eligible for.
And to piggyback off that, what FAFSA do you need to apply for if you're attending summer 2026?
Great question. So yeah, the summer at Penn State is a trailing semester. So summer of 2026 is part of the 25-26 academic year. So if you're coming in the summer and you want access to any federal aid sources, you must apply for the 25-26 FAFSA for summer and then 26-27 for next fall, spring, and the following summer. The good thing about doing that is since you haven't used any federal direct loans, coming in, you could qualify for a full $5,500 in federal direct loans to use just for your summer courses. Now, the flip side of that is there is an aggregate limit. I mean, a maximum that you get lifetime. If you use that full amount for the summer and you use the full amount every semester afterwards, your last semester, you end up having $1,500 less because you'll hit that aggregate limit before you would graduate. So just something to keep in mind. So it's a nice thing for new students because they can pay for a lot of those summer courses with those loans if they need to, but it does affect what you might have down the line.
Perfect, thank you. And then I kind of briefly touched on it, but not a very more in-depth answer. But when folks are looking at their estimated aid offers this time, what is the most accurate number they can look at to have a general idea of what their semesterly costs are?
Yeah, the best thing to do if you're looking at a semester at a time, everything is basically done for the full calendar year. We're going to assume if you're taking full-time credits, and just a point of clarification earlier, I know we talked about the credit limit, but anything less than 12 credits is, less than full-time. So that's going to be paid per credit. 12 to 19 credits is full-time. And if you go over 19 credits, then there's actually a surcharge on top of that. So you pay a little bit extra. So just something I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of. Um, so take a look at your total financial aid, take a look at your billable charges, subtract those two, your out of pocket expenses. That's going to be on that estimate. That's what you want to focus on. If you look at it for the full year and you're taking full time credits post semester, divide it in half. That gives you your semester out of pocket costs. That's the best way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I saw a good one. I lost it there. Um, so again, so kind of caveat off that one. What's this? I guess which section on that is the best one to look at? So I know some folks will get confused about their net price as well as like what their actual expenses. So what like cat? I'm gonna go like looking at the aid offer. What like section on there of like three or four sections that are there?
Yeah, I'd have to see the in front of me to say what the terminology says exactly, but basically it's going to be your out of pocket expenses. It should be in the bottom far right section, I believe, of that estimate. But again, you're taking your billable charges. The non-billable charges, obviously you have to factor those in there, but you want to really just focus on the billable charges minus whatever aid you're going to have. And then that difference is really what you've got to pay out of pocket. And again, that's what you want to focus on.
And then I'll ask the question about um, does Penn State work with only the FAFSA or do they accept CSS profiles?
Yeah, good question. I saw that a couple times. Yeah, unfortunately, Penn State only uses the FAFSA. That's it. We don't use the CSS profile. So unfortunately, there's no reason to submit it to Penn State. If you had to submit it for other schools, that's fine. But I do know there is a cost, per school you submit it to. So no need to submit it to Penn State. And again, that's for international students as well. So again, we only use the FAFSA, so no CSS profile at all.
Perfect. And I'll piggyback this one. I kind of saw it pop up in the chat a little bit, just to kind of, well, I know we used to do this a lot. If there is a difference, like a special circumstance and like the FAFSA itself, there is
Yep.
changes in the income or whichever, who are the best folks to contact for that one to go over that process?
Yeah, so you want to call our enrollment services center at 814-863-0000 number that was posted on that screen earlier. And just to give them the situation, we do have a special circumstance team that works on one of the teams in our office, and they'll get the information. They'll usually reach out and institute or put something on the student's account for you to fill out. Once you fill out that paperwork and we see what the changes are, they'll kind of review it. And if it looks like it might change the aid, they'll reach back out to you then and talk to you about what the process is. So yeah, just make the call and tell us what that situation is. But one thing that you need to keep in mind that's very important is the process at Penn State is we have to have the tax year's data before we can make any changes. So your FAFSA for next year is based upon 24 tax information. If your change is in 25, well, 25 taxes, we're filing those right now. So you might have those done. If the change is occurring in current year, 2026, we really can't look at that until your taxes for 26 will be filed next year. So even though we couldn't make the change until then, any aid change could be gotten retroactively. So just keep in mind, you have to have the tax return in hand basically before we can take a look at that.
Wonderful. And then how do folks submit their FAFSA? I don't know if everyone caught that at the beginning, but how do they do their FAFSA? Like, what's the best website for that?
Studentaid.gov. So same site you need for that, for filing for a Parent Plus loan, all you pretty much anything you need about financial aid, federal, studentaid.gov.
Perfect. This is a good one I saw. For students starting in the summer session, how does their cost of aid differ from the fall start? Like, what's the primary difference between summer and fall when it comes to those two?
Yeah, typically if you're looking at a LEAP program, it's typically 6 credits. You're not being charged for the whole entire summer because the program is only for a certain amount of time. Our summer is kind of a weird session because there's 5 different sessions. You're not paying because you're not staying the whole entire summer. So there are costs for living on campus, obviously in a room, and there's meal plan costs as well. So to give you a ballpark idea, typically I think for in-state students, it's around $9,000 give or take, all in for tuition, room, meal, everything. Out-of-state students, I think it's closer to 14, 15. So ballpark. Again, if you could use the cost calculator on the website, you can use it for the summer. It'll give you more exact numbers, but that just gives you a little bit of an idea. Okay. And again, the summer is part of the 25-26 academic year. Fall then starts the new 26-27. So 2 completely different academic years.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you this one because I just found it and it intrigued me. Um, it's two-parter on this one. So, what are different options at Penn State to optimize your cost of attendance? I'm guessing they're asking about like what are some of the ways to kind of help lower, kind of help better fit that like on-campus opportunities for employment. I'm guessing is what they meant to ask.
Yeah, it can be, some of the things if you're looking to try to find ways to lower your costs, outside of the aid, because you can't really do a whole lot with that. It's based upon your FAFSA. You want to consider things like maybe becoming a resident assistant, year two. Become an RA, that can get you some pretty nice educational benefits. Get your room and board for free. Maybe you work at food or housing. With some of those employment opportunities on campus might come with some additional benefits where you might get a little reduction in cost, or you get some extra meals that you're not paying for on your own. So there's things to look at. And some of those employment opportunities off campus can come with educational benefits as well. So it's definitely worth looking at. If you're going to work, try to do some research and try to get the best bang for your buck. A lot of employers will give you some money to help pay for school once you've worked there for a certain amount of time. So those are the kind of things that you want to look at. Do that, really hit the outside scholarships hard because outside scholarships are always available. And we have new ones put on our website each and every single week. So those are the things you want to kind of get into the habit of doing.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, sure.
So I kind of saw one of the questions in here. Um, if what are the primary kind of piggyback off that I know I had a summer question. I guess we'll do with what is one of the main differences for cost attendance between doing part-time and full-time?
Yeah, part time. If you do less than half time, then you don't really get a cost of attendance at all. Basically, it's just your tuition. So you have to take at least half time to really build a cost of attendance per se. But your tuition costs are obviously reduced. Everything is basically reduced when you're part time. So your cost of attendance is going to be much lower. Um, you might still have housing costs and so forth, but some of those other things are going to be reduced because you're only going to school part time. So just keep in mind there will be a pretty significant difference there. But if you use those calculators on our website and put in a number of credits and things like that, it can kind of give you a little better idea of what your cost of attendance might look like based upon a reduced amount of credits.
Perfect. I know we'll kind of go over a lot more about aid next time. Just gonna ask for the federal aid, is there a GPA requirement students have to meet?
For federal aid, there is not. It's all based upon the FAFSA data and the student aid index. For a lot of our merit scholarships, there could be a GPA requirement, there could be a need-based component, it could be a combination of those. Again, all of those are controlled directly through the academic colleges, so we have no idea really what those numbers could be. So you'd have to really reach out and talk to them if you wanted to have some questions about that. But again, keep in mind that those academic colleges tend to award a lot more on the back end, so more year 3 and 4 as opposed to upfront year 1 and 2. Although we've heard that some of those things are changing this year, and we've seen some nice changes with people getting more aid this year than we've seen in the past. So that's a good thing. So yeah,
Perfect. Thank you, Craig.
sure.
And then I'll just kind of touch on what are some more. So we went over non-billable. What are the only other, what are the options for billable expenses?
Yeah, billable charges, your tuition and fees, and then the meals in housing and meals. If you're living on campus. If you're not living on campus, then those are not. Those are really your only billable charges. Now, depending upon the courses you're taking, sometimes courses have additional fees for labs or things like that that could be added to that billable charge piece, but that's just for specific things. So, in general, just your tuition and fees, housing and food.
Perfect. Thank you. Trying to run through our questions here. Let's see. All right. I'm just trying to stay clear of the scholarship questions, but I know there are a bunch of those out there. I
Lots
will
of,
ask,
yeah, best thing, yeah. Yes, I just
ask,
go out and watch that video. We got that video. It's out there recorded back in November. Lots of good information on there. And so check that out. Also, on that same YouTube page, I've done a couple of Zoom sessions that I kind of help walk you down through our website to be able to find all those resources. So definitely check out those resources, and I think you'll be able to find a lot of what you need.
here's a good one for you, Craig. How are scholarships applied to the cost of attendance?
Yeah, so basically, your scholarships, again, if you have billable charges, are going to apply directly to your billable charges. Everything that comes in always goes towards your billable charges first. If you have no billable charges when a scholarship comes in, it will then refund to the student. Highly suggest and recommend students have e-refund set up because that's going to expedite the refund process greatly for them. Once that money is refunded to the student's account, it's basically then can be used at the student's discretion for non-billable charges. So whether that be food and housing, whether it be books, travel expenses, whatever, put it in the bank, save it to help pay for the next semester. Whatever you choose to do with it, at that point, it's up to you, as long as it's education related.
Perfect. And I found a good one here. Um, is the medical, so like medical expenses included in the non-billable section?
Mm-hmm. It is. There's the miscellaneous category that does include some things like the utilities, the medical expenses, things like that. If there's a situation where a student has a high amount of medical expenses compared, an abnormal amount of some sort, we do have a process called an ICOA or an increased cost of attendance. So if you find yourself in a situation like that, you can always reach out. We have specialists for ICOAs, just like we do for the special circumstance, that can review to see if your increased or your cost of attendance can be increased. Really, what that's doing at that point is just giving you more lending ability at that point because you're just raising that cost of attendance to allow you to possibly borrow more loans if you need them. But yeah, so in most cases, like I said, unless you have an absorbent amount, really not a whole lot that we can do because it's already built in there. If you're unsure, call and have a conversation, and they'll definitely reach out to you and discuss it with you.
Wonderful. And give it about a 5 minute warning then. So, folks, just keep typing your questions in. We'll gladly run through anyone, or the ones that are show up, and we'll gladly review all of those. Um, we'll go with well, how to try to do this. Do the financial aid costs for non-PA residents, international students vary? Or the not the overall the cost of attendance vary. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're looking at a difference as far as there is no difference between out of state and international, prices are the same. The only difference would be that unfortunately international students have a lot less aid opportunities. But But yeah, as far as the costs go, they're the same. There's cost of attendance is built the same, so it's pretty much identical. And we'll say for any international students, if you have questions about anything that's like paperwork related to any types of visas, things like that, we do have an Office of Veterans Programs, or not Veterans Programs, sorry, a Global Programs Office that is fantastic for helping out with those. If you're not sure if you are able to work or look at a work study job or things like that as an international student, definitely talk to the Global Programs Office. They can help you with those types of things.
Wonderful. I just saw one of the things that popped up. Um, can things such as athletic grants and stuff like that get used towards their cost of attendance as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, athletic grants, there are some different rules as far as athletes go in terms of some cost of attendance and things. I know there's a little differences. So for specifics, you'd want to work directly with the athletics office. But yeah, other than that, athletic grant is the same as a scholarship pretty much. It goes towards your billable charges, just like another scholarship would go for the most part.
All right, wonderful. Looks like our little Q&A portion is kind of wrapping up there. So we'll just do a quick wrap up. We'll keep going over the questions in the chat. I want to thank all you folks for showing up here and Craig for being my questioning board. But
Absolutely.
again, this will be posted sometime early next week on our YouTube page. You should get an email when that is posted. So I know there's some questions about folks for different time zones and wanted to watch the meeting again. So again, those will be posted next week. Again, that's on our YouTube page. You can gladly go watch it. You can hear our wonderful voices again. Again, thank you folks for taking time out of your evening, and I hope you folks have a great rest of your day.